Good morning. It is Wednesday, the 20th of July. As you can see, perhaps from the somewhat gloomy image in this picture, that it is a dark and gloomy day outside. It tried to rain a little earlier, which is interesting. Polokwane not known to get rain in winter, and yet this is the third or fourth time it's tried to rain. Not much that gets measured in the rain gauge, but it is interesting to see how the garden gets a little wet, which is lovely for the flowers. But it's also a reminder that our God is in control and he will have his will. And that brings me back to the story we have been following in Joshua. Today, Joshua chapter 8, verses 30 to 35. So a much shorter reading. And in this reading, it follows, but maybe not immediately thereafter, and I'll come back to that point. It follows after the destruction of the city of Ai. They gather at Mount Ebal, and there they build an altar and they worship God. At the foot of Mount Ebal is the fortified town of Shechem, and we have yet to be told when Shechem was defeated, or at that point was Shechem not defeated. And if that was the case, why did the people who lived in Shechem permit the Israelites to be gathered all around them worshiping their God? We are also told that as the Israelites worship God, there are not only the Israelites that are present, but many others as well. Who are these others? Where did they come from? On one hand, we know that when the Israelites left Egypt, they would have had many other people groups leave with them, slaves from other nations. And in a sense, that's, I believe, partly why the Israelites are led to Mount Horeb or Mount Sinai, and there God makes a covenant with them and says effectively, and I paraphrase very briefly, if you will be my people, I will be your God. And all along they're following the promises given to the patriarch Abraham, but there are other people present, a disparate group of people, and God is molding them into a nation. All the Israelites, the original descendants of Abraham, are there, and probably a few others. During their 40 years in the desert, there may also have been people groups who converted to Judaism. Those that attacked Israel, the Israelites in the desert, were defeated. But what if they converted to Judaism? So the people groups would have slowly accumulated with Israel. And in time to come, we read that many in the land of Canaan, the promised land, did the same. Those who refused and who wanted to continue practicing their religion were to have their religion defeated, symbolized by the defeat and the destruction of those people. And so it's interesting to note that on Mount Ebal, there are these other people present, which raises the question then, was this little sacrifice to God and the building of an altar, did it happen immediately, chronologically, immediately after the defeat of Ai? And I want to suggest, and I think I would be proved that many other theologians would agree with this, should I say I agree with them, that the Bible is often not written in a chronological manner. It's written in a more thematic manner, so that it's trying to describe to you the big themes. And of course, one of the big themes we've been following in the Exodus and in Genesis prior to that is the lordship of God, that he is the creator of everything. He is the only God, and he is the Lord of all who turn to him. And if you do not turn to him, you're effectively turning then to nobody, or to Satan even. And so this thematic following of scripture means that chronology can sometimes be ignored. And perhaps here is such an example. Ai is defeated, other battles happen, probably also including Shechem. And then at some point, reasonably soon after the defeat of Ai, Joshua brings the Israelites and now all the other people back to Mount Ebal, next to Shechem, and there they build an altar, because this is an important thing. It's one Moses had commanded they do, because many, many, many hundreds of years before, Abraham had built an altar outside the city of Shechem, which had existed even then, and he built an altar on the mountain. And so Israelites were coming back, and there was this liturgical and spiritual reaffirmation of what God had promised all those centuries before has now been fulfilled, and they build their own altar and they sacrifice to the Lord. So a little bit of theology almost on a Wednesday morning, but as we read scripture, remember it's not meant to be chronological. Our kind of rather Western mindset fixates on the chronology of events, which has its purpose, but then scripture is often written thematically, so it follows those big themes, and chronology becomes then less important. So we need to understand that dynamic as we try and get to grips with what is happening in scripture. The big theme: God is in control. He made us, he will look after us, and he will take us to the place he wishes us to be. We need to be obedient to him and follow him and let him be Lord of our lives. Let him sit in the driver's seat and take us where he wants us to be. Not that we laissez-faire and do nothing. We're not just passengers, but that we work with God, not demanding God works with us. Folks, have a wonderful day, and we'll chat again tomorrow. God bless.